Hi and welcome. My name is Mikael Flanissen and I am the author of the book Manipulation and the Weapon of Guilt, Collectivism Exposed. So I'm outside the complex where I live currently. I might add that you can check out manipulation.com where you have a referral directly to my ebook at Amazon, which is free of personal charge. In other words, download the ebook. It's free. There's a reason why. I don't really care to make money off you. I just want to expose the truth about certain things. So in general, my life is about observations and social science in general. In other words, I've been making a social experiment for quite a while, using a dog, which is exactly why I've named this video, Why Are Socialists Animals? Because the basic thing is that if I go down here, and unfortunately I haven't figured out either this iPad, or I am stupid, but if you look behind me here, there's a doggy. His name is Buddy. At least I named him that. And the thing about it is that I've been experimenting on this dog for about a year and a half. Giving him food on a daily basis, and the curious thing about him was that he would follow me around and just anywhere in this complex. I mean, I could show you right now. I can go over there and I can say hello, and he will barely even look at me. But as long as I gave him food, in other words, enticements, then he became my best friend and followed me around. I'm now going to go up to the 7-Eleven where I live, get myself a Coke, go home and work a little on my philosophy, which hopefully comes out next year. But the main point is how you create, how you entice and basically have people, driven by basic human survival instinct. In other words, you give them little presents. I have an example in my first book about how my daughter, we're supposed to go and get a shot at the doctor's house, a vaccine, and I told her, and she was a little bit anxious, and I just told her about, she would get this mega ice cream as soon as, she was done, and in other words, basically all she focused on from that moment on was that mega ice cream that I promised her. And it's the same thing here, that you basically are enticing people, and in this case, making, appealing to people's absolute animalistic side, their basic human survival instinct, and making them, your little puppets, which is, another way of saying that, socialists are in complete lack of control of themselves. I mean, these means are as old as history itself. I mean, anyone who's studied any sociology or history, philosophy, or whatever, will know that any authoritarianism or form of authoritarianism, any form of government, is always based on enticing people somehow. I mean, if you look into the history of what made the fall of the Roman Empire, it was exactly that. So when you look into these things, what you do is you create basically animals. You're appealing to their animal side and making them, work completely from the absolute basics of, anima. In other words, their ego, letting their ego completely take over and control them. So, I mean, by the way, we have these right behind me, a bunch of these disgusting animals who are basically based on that exact instinct. They're called Russians, and they are the most deluded, disgusting animals you can find on this planet, disguised as human beings. I have lived in Pattaya, now Thailand, for I don't know how long, and they're disgusting animals, man. Stay away, don't let them into your countries. They are filth scumbags. I mean, literally the lowest filth you can ever come across. But back to basic human survival instinct. I'm not in a 7-Eleven, so a little commercial for them. But the main point is that when you take into consideration that you want to live in freedom, and that most people want to live by freedom, then you need to figure out and question everything around you. In other words, people will start to control you, and they will do so in various ways: emotionally, psychologically, or by basic enticements, which is, again, is subliminal. So there are many ways that you control them. But you cannot control the healthy mind, in other words, the esteemed mind, self-respectful mind that understands that they own their body and that they, should treat others exactly the same way, which is what individualism is, based on as a core basics of all forms of individualism. The main point is that I might make another, sequel to this video and take you, past the guy that is actually sitting here at night begging, which I have no problem with. I don't have a problem with beggars. A few beggars here and there in a society will always be there. It doesn't matter. Socialists will say, oh, but they shouldn't be there. What they don't realize is that the outcome of socialism in the end is always worse, which means more beggars are there than there would be eventually if you really left people alone, stopped taxing people, left the government out of their people's pockets and so forth. Capitalism would improve people's lives and move people up from the bottom, pushing them, creating incentive. Quite simply, when there is no food on the table, you have the incentive to start getting your finger out your butt and start doing something about your life, which is not really going to happen if you're conditioned to think that you are being fed just like the dog, so you become an animal who's basically based on basic human survival instinct. So the main point is that with this guy, I will show you a little story and talk a little about how we are oftentimes given the illusion that we're helping people. I walk past this man, and I walked past this man for the last 3.5 years. I've lived in Thailand, and he's still sitting there. So basically, the question you should ask yourself is that when you give money to a person who's begging, are you really helping them, or are you actually contributing to their misery, sitting there doing nothing? In Thailand, basically every human being here have every option of grabbing a cart or something, putting some food on there and start selling food. It's one of the lowest unemployment rates in the world, and yeah, people don't have a lot of money, but they have what they need, and they might not have an easy way of getting their iPhone because iPhone's an expensive thing, so forth. So someone in Europe might see that as poverty because they can't afford cigarettes, so I should pay for your cigarettes and so forth. Whatever. The main point is that I think you should think about what's behind your actions. Many people don't. They think they help people, but they don't. In most cases, they are basically contributing to people, continuing being, codependent, in other words. And bringing me to another point, so if we took an example, and we took horses, and we were in the desert, and we brought the horses were used to going to a laguna, whatever you call it, a little oasis, and drinking from the water. If we then moved the water in the direction, in buckets of water, by 100 meters or 300 feet a day, whatever, and we did that for a few months, and the horses would come and drink from those buckets of water instead. Eventually, having brought them away from the hole, eventually they would be so conditioned, codependent on drinking from that. If we removed them, they'd die. So basically, here are a couple of examples of how you should consider your actions. That when you contribute to someone, I'm the type of person who would be ready to invite someone into my house and letting that person sleep on my sofa, give them 2 days, spend some money on clothing, help them a little bit, give them a good shower, give them a few phone calls, call around and get an opportunity for finding a job and moving on with your life. But a larger percentage of the people that you just throw a few coins at are not really for them. It's because it makes you feel better about yourself. And in worst scenario, it's because you will feel bad if you don't throw those coins at them. In other words, you're codependent on them. Or in other words, they have created, you are already manipulated to be codependent, on them. And it's not necessarily something to do with them specifically. It has something to do with your mindset. You've been brainwashed into believing that altruism is a reality, which is a hoax. This is going to be, explained very carefully in my next book, how altruism is the key to collectivism. It's a form of religion, believing in selflessness, even though all actions, whatever you do, is always going to be selfish to some extent. The only question is, how selfish? So instead of coming up with these illusions of being selfless or altruistic, which is bogus. Of course, in some cases you have altruistic examples of a mother who might choose to not to eat over letting the child eat, so the child can survive and literally risk the fact that they die. There's no dispute, regardless which way you twist and turn it. We're selfish by inherent nature, and not admitting to that creates a deluded mindset, which makes people, codependent, and not only codependent, demanding codependency upon others or pushing codependency upon others, but they're also being manipulated themselves in situations. I mean, ask yourself a very simple question. If you go over and you paint your friend's apartment, will you eventually use it against them at a later time? Well, then you've basically created some form of, crony capitalism, or you've done an action with ulterior motives. You've manipulated doing something for someone else in order to get a return, which has nothing to do with selflessness. Again, but many people live this religion of altruism, believing that this is the reality. Well, there are just a few examples of making you think. I know it's been quite a while, since I've made any videos, and I hope you enjoy my words today. If you have any questions, always ask questions beneath the video. Have fun, and I will, as I said, make another video and go a little deeper into the idea of helping people, really helping them. Because the problem with socialism and all of these, altruistic perspectives that are also occurring within religious, groups, that they're an illusion. They're all done. That altruists are people that have nothing but ulterior motives. Again, I could push this story back again and go back to the fact that, the difference between me and an altruist, because I'm not an altruist, okay? I absolutely agree that I'm selfish. And then I ask myself every single time I do any action, how freaking selfish I am. And that means I can always, decide between, how selfish or, is it extremely selfish or is it healthily selfish? I own my body, so yeah, I'm selfish about my body, and you don't intrude on mine, I will shoot you. That's simple. So that's just how things are. So that's very selfish of me, but it's not a bad form of selfishness, because it is my body, and you cannot argue that it isn't. And you don't have the right to intrude on my freedom or subjugate me in whatsoever ways, and I actually have every single right to defend such rights. So from the perspective of going back to the idea of altruism, the difference between an altruist and a genuine individualist is I will paint my friend's wall or house or whatever, garage, and I will go over there. And should I ever get a no when I ask for any favors, from that person, then I will never use it against them, because I did not paint that house or do that deed or chore, whatever, not chore, deed, action for another person for the purpose of ulterior motives, some conning selfish return. I did it because I wanted to help my friend. And then you can start debating what the selfishness or selflessness really means in life. Have a good one. I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye.